Guys, I need to beat some allegations. No, not like that. I'm being called a biased baseball YouTuber. I make it no secret what team I'm a huge fan of, but now the fans of my favorite team's rivals are calling me out. This main channel is supposed to be a hub for unbiased, objective baseball storytelling and commentary, and I intend to keep it that way. But sometimes I feel like I need to prove myself to you guys, and that's what I'm going to do today. Today, I'm making the ultimate sacrifice. We're going to talk about the biggest September collapse in the history of the sport, one that centers on my favorite team, the New York Mets. Sure, there are plenty of great examples of collapses other than the 2007 Mets, but if we're being honest with each other, no one does a collapse quite like the 2007 Mets. And today, theirs is going to be the story that I recount in painstaking detail, because I have no emotions tied to this. I'm a stone-cold baseball journalist, people, or just like a masochist of some kind. I haven't really thought about it. I should probably talk to like a therapist maybe. And before we keep going with today's video, want to quickly shout out Nike, because they're an official partner of John Boy Media and Jolly Olive. Now, check out the affiliate link in the description down below for some sweet deals on their awesome gear. Our story starts nearly a full calendar year removed from Doomsday itself. Game 7 of the 2006 National League Championship Series at Shea Stadium. Heroic plays, gutty pitching performances, and a back-breaking home run. The 83-win St. Louis Cardinals upset the top-seeded New York Mets, advancing and eventually winning that year's World Series. Despite a crushing end to the season, in the gloomy rain of an October night, the optimism for the future remained well intact for the good people of Queens, New York. The core of David Wright, Jose Reyes, Carlos Delgado, and Carlos Beltran wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Their closer, Billy Wagner, was a future Hall of Famer. If not for some late, untimely injuries to veteran starters, these Mets probably could have gone all the way. Also, the rest of their rotation had some young guys to latch some hope onto. With a 97-win season and their deepest postseason run in years, this front office will probably infuse even more talent into this roster too. This is just the beginning. Fast forward to opening day in 2007, and there was plenty of change to this roster, just not all the changes that I think Mets fans were hoping for. Corner outfielder Cliff Floyd departed in free agency after 4 years with the club, replaced with veteran Moises Alou. Mid-season acquisition Shawn Green signed on for another year in New York. Veteran starters Tom Glavine and El Duque returned on one-year deals. But for a team with pitching as its clear weak link, the front office failed to make significant signings while also losing some key pieces along the way. The bullpen would have to go on without the likes of Chad Bradford and Darren Oliver, who played pivotal roles on the 2006 team. It didn't help that the front office traded away Heath Bell for cheap, a short-sighted move considering he would go on to save over 100 games in the ensuing years for the San Diego Padres. But the worst part of this offseason was the Mets ownership getting outbid consistently. The Wilpon family finished second place in the negotiating war for Japanese phenom Daisuke Matsuzaka, $11 million short of the Boston Red Sox. Daisuke would finish fourth in AL Rookie of the Year voting in his first year, then place fourth in Cy Young voting his second year, as Boston would win its second World Series in 4 years' time thanks to his help. The Mets also got heavily involved in the Barry Zito sweepstakes, a bidding war eventually won by the San Francisco Giants. The Cy Young winning southpaw got a 7-year deal worth $126 million, the most expensive starting pitcher contract in MLB history at the time. The Mets, once thought to be favorites, never budged on a 5-year offer. So the 2007 New York Mets entered the new season with a much older roster, one that didn't include significant improvements to their pitching staff as well. With rotation ace Pedro Martinez not due back from a rotator cuff injury until the second half at least, guys like John Maine, Oliver Perez, Mike Pelfrey, and Philip Humber were due for extended looks. But an underwhelming offseason didn't slow the Mets down, as they got their revenge by sweeping the St. Louis Cardinals on the road in their first series of the year, outscoring opponents 31-3 through their first 4 games. Whatever flaws this 2007 squad had, and we'll get to those flaws in just a second, you could not see them through the first 2 months of this season. When the calendar flipped to June, the Mets had a top 3 batting average and top 5 overall offense in baseball by weighted runs created plus, and also 20 more stolen bases than the second closest team in baseball. Shockingly though, it was their pitching staff holding more of the weight at this juncture, with their 3.37 staff ERA and 1.22 staff WHIP only being outdone by the San Diego Padres through 2 months. Second-year right-hander John Maine won Pitcher of the Month honors in April, and 4 members of the starting rotation featured an above league average ERA through 2 months despite the concerns about this unit heading into the year. But their 34-18 record and 4.5 game lead in the division would take a significant hit in June as the club hit their first real slump of 2007. They lost 6 consecutive series, all of them against winning teams, losing 14 of 18 games overall. Now, this wouldn't be the stretch that ruined their season. They didn't even lose sole possession of first place during this skid, but it's important to highlight because losing for such a long stretch like this was in the team's DNA, and though that would go away for a little bit, it would resurface at the worst time. This stretch of awful baseball was kickstarted by a home series where the Mets were swept by none other than the Philadelphia Phillies. You might have noticed that we haven't really talked about the Phillies all that much. We're going to be talking about them a lot for the rest of the video. Great. The rivalry between these two teams in 2007 actually began way back in January, when reporters asked Phillies shortstop Jimmy Rollins if they were the team to beat in the National League East. Rollins replied yes, going on to say that the Mets staff is getting old, finalizing that last year is over with and 2007 would be a new challenge. The Mets responded in kind, saying what did they win last year, and that until the Phillies prove it on the field, then it's all just talk. While the Mets had handled the Phillies earlier in the year, winning 3 of the first 4 matchups, this set at Shea Stadium in June would be the sign of things to come. The Mets blew a 2-0 lead late in the second game and a 1-run 9th inning lead in the finale. Hopefully neither one of these close losses in very winnable games will come back to bite the Mets later. I'm sure it has nothing to do with anything. The Mets did turn things around shortly after that, including winning 3 of 4 in a road series against Philadelphia, and they reached the All-Star break with a 2-game division lead. At the trade deadline, they'd acquire second baseman Luis Castillo, a 3-time Gold Glover who was hitting over 300 for the Twins at the time of the swap. Fast forward all the way to the end of August, and the Phillies were set to play host to the Mets for a 4-game series, the first meeting between these two teams since July 1st. Staked to a 6-game division lead, the Mets realistically just needed to split these 4 games to keep the pressure on Philadelphia. They had gone 6-5 in the last 11 matchups of this rivalry, with 7 games remaining between the two clubs, the last 3 of the games set to be played at Shea Stadium. Point blank, advantage Mets. Let's see what happened. In Game 1 of the series, Philadelphia clubbed 3 home runs en route to a 9-2 victory. The next day, the Mets wasted 7 shutout innings from Tom Glavine as the bullpen failed to protect a 2-0 lead late, capped off by a Ryan Howard walk-off home run. Despite 10 hits in Game 3, the Mets mustered up just 1 of those hits with runners in scoring position and lost the game 3-2. Things looked incredibly grim when Game 4 rolled around. El Duque got absolutely shelled, allowing 3 home runs in just 3 innings, setting the Mets down 5-0 early. But the Mets offense came back to life, storming back to tie the game at 5 by the end of the 5th inning. When the bullpen coughed up 3 more runs in return, the offense rallied again. Down 8-5 in the 8th inning, the Mets lineup responded with 5 more runs, giving closer Billy Wagner a 2-run cushion with only 6 outs to go. A 2-run lead was shortened to a 1-run lead when Pat Burrell clubbed his 4th homer of the series off Wagner. When the Mets offense sputtered in the top of the 9th, the comeback felt all but certain. All it took was 3 singles and 3 stolen bases for the Phillies to complete the comeback, winning 11-10 and sweeping the 4-game set, turning a 6-game division deficit into just 2. What's funny is that after these two teams separated, the Mets almost instantly gained back all of that ground. They won 9 of their next 10 games, and a big reason for that was the return of Pedro Martinez, who pitched to a 2.57 ERA and 5 September starts. By the 12th day of the month, the Mets took control of their largest division lead of the entire season at 7 games. A 7-game lead with 17 games to play. That phrase is seared into the mind of every Mets fan, but not me, because I'm not a Mets fan. I'm just a baseball fan. Guys, come on. The Mets woke up with a 1-game lead for the best record in the National League on September 14th, just 2 weeks removed from the end of the regular season. When the Philadelphia Phillies entered Shea Stadium that day, they didn't have a claim to a postseason spot. Having won just 6 of their 15 matchups at the time, the Mets likely could have closed the book on their rival season with a series victory at home. Through 5 innings in the series opener, Tom Glavine had allowed just 1 base runner. In his last 4 starts, Glavine had allowed just a combined 4 earned runs and 5 walks overall, pitching his best baseball of the year at the most crucial time. Surely he'll be due for some good performances in crucial games down the stretch, right? right? With the Phillies down by 2, Chase Utley tied the game with a 2-run homer, taking us into another battle of the bullpens. The Mets loaded the bases in the 8th inning but did not score, but Billy Wagner got some revenge by striking out the side in the 9th. In the 10th, a pair of misplays by the Mets battery enabled a go-ahead sacrifice fly, and one extra run is all Philly would need as Brett Myers shut the door for a 3-2 win in extra innings. Coming down from hopes of a series victory, the Mets needed just a single win here to avoid total disaster, and the Mets handed their bullpen a 3-1 lead late, but Aaron Rowan tied the game in the next inning with a solo home run, and Jimmy Rollins, set to win his first MVP that year, dealt the death blow, scorching a triple to the Shea Stadium gap to take a 5-3 lead, which the Phillies bullpen would successfully protect. The Mets had one last try to salvage this series at home. The hopes of that happening dimmed significantly when the Phillies jumped Oliver Perez for 5 runs in 5 innings. All series long and all year long, really, the Mets seemed to fall flat and play their worst baseball whenever the Phillies were on the other side. That all had a chance to change when Carlos Beltran stepped up to the plate as the tying run in the 5th inning of this crucial game, and the $119 million man delivered a game-tying 3-run blast. The Mets had once again surged back from the brink, and sure, this would be another battle of the bullpens, which the Mets didn't have a great track record in, and now they had exactly what they needed, a signature highlight to jolt this roster, wake everybody up, and win the big game. Sure, they got beat down by the Phillies that year, but they're not going to roll over in this last game. They're not just going to lay down and what was that? Greg Dobbs hit a grand slam in the next inning, and the Mets offense only got 1 hit in the last 4 innings of the game, and they lost. And the Phillies went on to complete the sweep, which means the Mets went 2-7 against their division rival on their own home turf that year. Got it. Cool, thanks. Again, I'm objective, so I don't care about that. It's just one team played better than the other. It doesn't affect me at all, right, guys? So that series was another unmitigated disaster. No sugarcoating it. But the Mets still held a 3.5 game division lead, even after officially finishing the season 6-12 against the Phillies in 18 games. The best news the Mets had to hang on to was that their remaining 14 games looked like a cakewalk, with all but one of those games coming against the Florida Marlins and Washington Nationals, 2 teams that would finish within the bottom 5 of the National League. First up would be a trip to DC to face the Nationals, who would finish the 2007 season with the fewest runs scored of any offense in MLB. Naturally, they put up 12 runs in the opener, then 9 runs in the second game to win the series. In that second game, the Mets blew a 7-4 lead, then with 2 outs and nobody on in the 9th inning, strung together 3 straight hits, only to lose anyways on a strikeout. Maximum pain! After dropping a disappointing series to Washington, the Mets lost the opener of their 4-game set with the Marlins. They came back late to hold a 7-4 lead in the 9th inning, and then coughed up the lead immediately after before surrendering a walk-off double to Dan Uggla. But New York would finally capitalize on a weak opponent, scoring 23 runs in the next 3 games to take the series back up to a 2.5 game lead in the division. The Mets hosted the Nationals for another series and another shot at redemption. The anemic Nationals offense responded with a 13-run game against Mike Pelfrey. That same weak lineup managed another 10 runs in the second game, entering the 9th inning with a 10-3 lead. But ladies and gentlemen, we found new levels of maximum pain. Jose Reyes clubs a 3-run homer to cut the lead. Moises Alou hits a bases-clearing double to make it a 1-run game. The Mets still have 2 outs to get in the tying run, and Endy Chavez is at second base. But then Carlos Delgado strikes out, and Paulo Duca lines out, and 10-9 is your final score. Maximum pain again! In the finale, the Mets led 5-0 after 3 innings. Can you guess what happens next? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style? Lock in your final answer. If you selected B, gut-wrenching loss, you are correct, and good on you for paying attention. The light-hitting Nationals offense scored 9 or more runs just 12 times that season, with 5 of those 12 outbursts coming in this late September stretch against the Mets. 5 times in 6 games. That should be impossible. After dropping a makeup game against the St. Louis Cardinals, the Mets sat in a tie with the Phillies for sole possession of the division lead with 3 games left on the schedule. It was the first time since May 15th that the Mets were not alone in first place. While they couldn't seem to buy a win against the lowly Nationals, the Phillies won 5 of 7 games against Washington in the same window of time, which is a 3.5 game swing in the division that determined the season. The Mets welcomed the Marlins to Shea Stadium for the final series of the year, having lost 4 games in a row and 10 of their last 14 overall. In the opener, Oliver Perez coughed up 6 runs early. The Mets got a base runner on in every inning of this game, but didn't score after the 5th, resulting in another deflating loss. Over in Philadelphia, Philadelphia, Cole Hamels struck out 13 Nationals in 8 scoreless innings, and the Phillies secured a 6-0 win to officially leapfrog the Mets into first place. Entering Game 161, a loss would seal the fate of the Mets season entirely, being that they didn't have the tiebreaker against Philadelphia. To save their season, the Mets sent right-hander John Maine to toe the rubber. After winning Pitcher of the Month back in April and pitching to a 2.71 ERA overall in the first half, the final 2 months of the year had not been kind to John Maine. Over his last 10 starts, he pitched to an ERA north of 7, completing 6 innings just twice in that span. The Mets would give him decent cushion early, jumping all over rookie Chris Seddon for 5 runs in 2 innings. Little did they know, all they would need that day would be just a single run, as John Maine turned in the most memorable performance of his brief MLB career. With the 2007 season on the line, Maine was dominant, punching out 14 Marlins hitters and carrying a no-hitter to within 4 outs of the finish line. To add insult to injury for Florida, the Mets and Marlins engaged in a pretty decent brawl in the 5th inning after Jose Reyes and Miguel Olivo jawed at each other. The Mets trounced the Marlins 13-0, getting a win they desperately needed. The Phillies' late comeback attempt against the Nationals proved fruitless, resulting in another tie for the NL East crown, this time with only 1 single game remaining. If one team lost and the other won, that would be it. If they got the same result, a tiebreaker Game 163 at Philadelphia would be set. September 30th, 2007. Much like the phrase I mentioned before, 7 up with 17 to go, I think this date is also seared into the mind of Mets fans everywhere. Searching for an 89th win to extend their season another day, the Mets sent veteran southpaw Tom Glavine to the mound. After his brilliant 4-start stretch that we mentioned before, he hit a bit of a wall entering this outing, losing both of his last 2 starts with 10 runs allowed in 10 innings. But with all those years on competitive Atlanta teams, Tom Glavine was no stranger to a big game. Back in 1993, Tom Glavine beat the Colorado Rockies to send the Braves to the playoffs over the Giants. Glavine had won 14 postseason games in his career, including 2 with the Mets last year. I think if you polled Mets fans on who they wanted to get the ball in this game, knowing that Pedro Martinez was unavailable on short rest, I think most, if not all of them, would have said Tom Glavine. The first batter he faced was Hanley Ramirez, who he quickly got ahead of 0-2, but then the veteran lost him to a leadoff walk. After getting his first out, he allowed a single to lefty hitter Jeremy Hermida. Miguel Cabrera, in what would be his last game as a Florida Marlin, followed with an RBI single. In the blink of an eye, the Marlins have a lead. Cody Ross follows with a double to the right field corner. A run scores with ease, but the Mets have a chance to gun down the trail runner Miguel Cabrera, but the relay home can't be corralled. Now Tom Glavine, backing up the throw, has a shot to throw out Cody Ross at third base. That throw also can't be brought in, bouncing into the outfield and allowing Ross to score a Little League 3-run home run. 5 batters into the game, the Marlins have a 4-0 lead, and there's only 1 out. But the rally's not over yet. Mike Jacobs hits a single. Tom Glavine issues another walk. Alejandro De Aza follows with another single, and the bases are loaded. Glavine's last chance to stay in this game is getting the opposing pitcher Dontrelle Willis out, but Willis is no gimme. He's homered at Shea Stadium before, and his 121 OPS plus in 2007 was by far the highest of his career as a hitter. Tom Glavine gets ahead of him with a 1-2 count in desperate need of a strikeout or double play. Instead, Glavine completely botches an inside breaking ball, hitting Willis on the hands instead, forcing in the 5th run of the inning on what looked like it could have been called a swing by Dontrelle Willis. Manager Willie Randolph mercifully pulls the plug on his drowning veteran, and Tom Glavine's final outing as a Met is sealed. With another 2-run knock by Dan Uggla later on, Tom Glavine officially allowed 7 earned runs and recorded just 1 out in the most important game of the entire season. Once a Brave, always a Brave. The Mets grabbed a run on a wild pitch in the bottom half of the inning, but any good news should be immediately met with bad news. As a result, Carlos Delgado breaks his hand on a hit by pitch in the very next at-bat. With the bases loaded and 2 outs, catcher Ramon Castro cranks a fly ball to deep left field with a chance to revive the Mets completely. Instead, the would-be grand slam falls harmlessly into the glove of Jeremy Hermida on the warning track, and the Mets settle for 1 run. They got 2 men on in the second and loaded the bases in the third, but both times came up empty. Soon, the weight of the deficit began to set in, and the Mets offense would muster up just 2 more hits from the 4th inning to the end of the game. The Mets bullpen finally gave a great performance, pitching 8 1/3 innings and allowing just 1 run, but it was too little, too late.
Well, this is an experience I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
They certainly expected to play October baseball in 2007, and it certainly appears that that will not happen. Swing and a miss. He struck him out, and barring a huge Washington rally in Philadelphia in the 9th inning, The greatest late September collapse in the history of Major League Baseball is now complete.
The Mets dropped the season finale 8-1 to the Florida Marlins, losing the series and forcing themselves to watch helplessly as the game in Philadelphia unfolded. The Phillies' own veteran southpaw, Jamie Moyer, allowed 1 run in 5 1/3 innings. Ryan Howard homered and collected 3 RBIs, and the Phillies' bullpen allowed just 2 base runners to cruise to a simple 5-1 win.
And I think that even some of the quotes that we read the last week of the season were very telling. To hear Met players say on the record, we're so good that sometimes we get bored. That was Carlos Delgado. That was Pedro Martinez. That's really hard to believe that Major League players would say that, and now they won't be bored. They'll just be inactive in the month of October. Well, Met fans invest so much passion in their team. And I think that they felt that perhaps in 2007, at times, that passion was not returned.
You know, I think David said it best. The fans deserve better. The front office deserves better. Everybody deserves better. We played like crap.
We f***ed that up as a team, and that's plain and simple.
We were too good to finish like this.
The Mets now have many months to try and digest exactly what went down. They also must digest the fact that they are now a part of baseball history.
17 games removed from competing for the top seed in the National League, the New York Mets went 5-12, watching their 7-game division lead evaporate. The 2007 season was over for the Mets, well short of any October heroics, and the ensuing years brought on not only a new stadium with its own problems, but the slow and painful deconstruction of both the roster and coaching staff that was once seemingly destined for a championship. The rivalry between these two teams has experienced quite a bit of evolution in the near 2 decades since, but until the Mets finally climb the mountain, the bitter taste of the 2007 season will likely remain for any fan who was old enough at the time to remember what it felt like. And that is the story of the biggest collapse in baseball history. See guys, I did it. I'm a man of my word. I'm an unbiased journalist, and you're not going to get another Phillies video for like 3 years, so really enjoy this one. Jokes aside, thank you for watching this video to the end. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. NL East fans of all kinds are welcome here. That'll do it for me though, and I'll see you guys next time.